ready.
응답하라
여친. 고 to the 은 to the 실.
back to the 격 to the Jew. Oh, that's good enough.
We never introduced ourselves by name and Korean name.
Oh,
Right? So I'm Jane.
I'm Ellen. Well, you should do your full name.
My name is Jane Park, and my Korean name is Park Kyungju.
Yes. Ellen Aquario. Korean name is Ko Eun-sil.
Love it.
People couldn't pronounce my name.
And because when you came from Korea, that was probably really hard, and you didn't have Ellen.
So that we started out with Eun-sil, and then they'd be like Eun-sil. I'm like, no, Eun-sil,
Eun-sil.
Yeah, like.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think about it, it should have been spelled S-H-I-L. But you know, the spelling is constantly changing.
It is.
It's
always
so confusing.
changing,
And my last name, I thought I was supposed to be spelled Go, G-O. That is the most accurate sounding, but a lot of people spell it K-O.
Mm-hmm. Because with the kiok, right, that consonant, it's between a G and a K is the only way I can describe it.
And then yours, Park. It's not Park. It's Pak.
Yes.
And that would really... Are people changing it to B-O-K? Pak?
Right. It would be like bak bak. Like
Bak choy?
Yeah, bak choy. I've seen different spellings of like B-A-K.
But Park
P-A-H-K.
Park is so established.
I think it's the most common spelling of that last name.
Like Kim. K-I-M is super established. I can't imagine people spelling it G-I-M. But then when you say kimbap, it's spelled G-I-M-B-A-P.
And I've seen people spell it G-I-M.
Oh, really?
Well. Mm-hmm.
So maybe it is happening.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No.
Which is actually a really great way for us to get into the topic of speaking Korean at home. Do you speak Korean at home?
We speak mostly English at home, but the kids have been learning Korean for about... maybe like going on 2 years now. So they're picking up. So they do virtual Korean school.
한글학교. Korean school.
I mean, we don't call it that. We just call it like Korean lessons. And it's just on Zoom. It started during the pandemic. And then we continued it because it was so convenient. Because like, we weren't losing a whole Saturday morning. We're typically the traditional Korean school model in the States or anywhere they have it is like
I tried. You know that a lot of churches do the weekly and I tried taking my kids and they nearly died. They're just like
it's a lot of school. They're in school Monday to Friday and then a whole morning on Saturday is really hard. And that's the life that I had. I never had a free Saturday from before I could remember until I graduated
and your
from
Korean
high
is
school.
so good. 한국말 너무 잘해. I just said your speaking Korean is so good.
It's mostly because, and my son has been asking me this. He's been asking me like, Mom, what was your first language? And first language, even though I was born here, was Korean because my parents only spoke to me in Korean until I went to school.
Preschool? 아니면 kindergarten?
Probably kindergarten. Yeah, I mean, I think I probably picked up English in preschool too, but I remember having to go to ESL, like English as second language.
Oh, you did that
when I entered public school because even though
my cousins did that. They were watching Korean dramas at home with their mom, and then all of a sudden it came time to go to school, and they didn't know how to speak English well.
Yeah,
fascinating.
So. But then, you know, as you get older and as I spoke more and more English at home, I was still going to Korean school, and then even though I spoke it, I didn't know how to read and write. So for that, I went to Korean school on the weekends, which for a while was at church, like at our local church. And then it was at the local high school where there was I think a Korean organization that put on a school.
근데 너 한국 친구들 많잖아.
I do. Because I grew up... 한국말 하라고 지금?
Oh, yeah. So I just said you have a lot of Korean friends. Try to talk in Korean.
Okay. I mean... 오케이. 해볼게.
한국말 잘하니까.
서툴겠지만. 서툴겠지만 해볼게.
잘해.
오케이.
한국 친구들 많아?
많아.
Do you have a lot of Korean friends?
I do. So,
교회에서?
교회에서 아니 학교에서.
학교에서? What school?
Okay, so I went to a school in Cerritos, California.
That's
an LA suburb.
California.
남가주, Southern California, right? So there were there were a handful of Korean students when I started. But by the time I graduated, by the time I was in high school and graduated from high school, 한국 애들이 진짜 많았어.
A lot of Koreans.
한국 학생들, 동양 학생들, a lot of Koreans, Asians. And so my best friends were Korean because our moms would find each other at school. Very similar to how things are today. But it was like, you need to look for carpool buddies. You need to look for moms who you feel safe taking your child to after school activities.
Yeah, there's an instant like trust when you have a fellow Korean member in the community.
So it was a way of building community, and so you sought out those other Korean families. So really part of it, I would say my friendships, part of it was a result of our moms driving that connection, and then part of it was just naturally kids find people that you have commonalities with.
You inspire me. I want to show me that I could teach my kids Korean at home, and they could, because my cousins, the ones like you, they started out, I mean, they were born here, but they like learned ESL or had to go to ESL even though they were born here, and then I don't feel like their Korean is as good as yours.
There are so many Korean, I have a lot of Korean American peers who maybe didn't speak a lot of Korean growing up at home, but I am so inspired by, because I watch them with their kids, and they are dedicated, committed to speaking to them in Korean or only in Korean, which I think has to be such an intentional thing. And
actually, you were telling me about that, because strangers online were having opinions about what language you should be speaking at home in your own house. When you told me, I was floored.
So it happened on TikTok, because as I mentioned, something that I started doing earlier when I was on TikTok was sharing moments of teaching my kids Korean.
Yes,
it
beautiful.
originated from like a funny moment, because I was trying to teach them how to say 할아버지.
Yeah,
we were
very real.
We were in California during the pandemic, so we were going to see my grandpa a lot. 할아버지. Yeah. And then they live with, or we were staying with my parents, which to them is their 할아버지 and 할머니. And instead of saying 할아버지, they're like, they got sidetracked, and they started singing like 할아버지 to the tune of Happy Birthday. Like,
할아버지 to you.
Yeah. And
that's good.
I said, okay, maybe this makes for good content, or it's tough. It's tough trying to teach these kids a new language.
Super innocent, super fun. Yeah.
And then so it started with, okay, let's just start with the most common phrases: how to say hi, how to say thank you, 안녕하세요, 감사합니다. Okay, let's do happy birthday, 생일 축하합니다, And then those videos went crazy viral. It was the craziest thing, because I thought, to me, this is so mundane. If I saw another Korean American mom posting that, I would think, oh, but cute.
Yeah.
Or oh yeah, that's a good reminder for me to do it. But it wouldn't be like
mind-blowing, because it's your daily life.
Right. But for some people, for whatever reason, I heard from a lot of people who said, oh, it's been encouraging me to learn. Yes. I'm Korean, but I've never learned Korean.
If I saw that actually in my house, because my husband's Filipino, and he grew up he actually got told by his grade teachers to stop speaking Tagalog, Ilocano, the Filipino languages. They
terrible.
Got shamed.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact that has been the experience of some Asian Americans. And that's it's sort of actually like a heart-aching subject for that family. Yeah. And so we only speak English, but I grew up speaking completely Korean at home, even up to at home it was always Korean. Even when you were grown, right? You were always speaking Korean?
Yeah,
at your parents'
at home.
house? Yeah. So to try to teach Korean at home has been hard, because our main language is English, but you have a Korean husband.
Right.
And so
there's really no excuse for why we weren't speaking Korean, except for the fact that
you're Korean American.
Yeah.
You're not just Korean. You're Korean American.
Except for the fact
that's also your language.
Yeah, we didn't speak, like I didn't, my husband also happens to be Korean American, but we never spoke to each other in Korean.
When you first met. Yeah.
Right. Only time we do is when we're speaking to our parents.
Yeah. But you have people on the internet that were like, why are you even doing this?
Why are you even doing Korean lessons? You wouldn't need to do that if you spoke Korean all the time.
Did you even think that would come up?
No.
You were blindsided. You thought you were just sharing this beautiful moment or like a everyday moment at home. And then you get a comment that's like telling you how to live your life.
Right.
Were you angry?
I think I did feel anger. I think I was taken aback that this was a question that I would receive, and
from
so
I
took it from a stranger. So sometimes I think in the beginning I took it at face value. Oh, they're really curious why I'm not,
Yeah.
And then I started, doing replies, and I'm like, why am I defending?
Right.
This just is a byproduct of the way we've lived. We didn't live near grandparents, so the kids didn't get a lot of exposure to hearing Korean at home is the bottom line. And then we had nobody telling us that we should, or we shouldn't.
And also you're Korean American. Like people we have to keep saying this because it's like people love to judge us and compare us to Koreans in Korea.
Yes.
And we're like, well, actually, we're Koreans in America. And
it should be completely fine to just leave it at, because we're American. That's why we want to speak Korean. But
we have to defend what we do in our own homes. That's, I think, the trickiest part of making relatable content. And of course, you want people to relate to you. But when that line gets crossed, like, you don't live in my house. You are not actually my children's aunt, uncle. You don't get to have a say in how we live at home.
Yes.
The boundaries, that's when I think it's a little bit like, frustrating doing what we do. Because of course we want to be relatable. That's the whole point. We're not celebrities. We're just trying to like interact and connect with everyday experiences. But when people start to dictate how you should live your life, it feels invasive.
Yeah, it does.
I was angry for you when you told me. I mean, I didn't even think, when you told me, I was like, what? Like, my brain would never go, even just as a regular person talking to anybody, you should only be talking in this language at home.
Right. And I don't know what the intent is behind those questions or comments, right? It might have just be a genuine, like, why don't you just speak Korean at home? Like, why do you have to intentionally teach them like that? Because it's as if it were a second language, and to have to explain because
you're a better person
because it
than
is
me.
a
Immediately I was
language.
like, shut the fuck up, bitch. This is where you're very diplomatic, and
I think diplomatic is
whereas I'm just like, straight gone in 60 seconds. Yeah.
And then like on the flip side, we apparently were fooling some people, some Korean people too. They were making explanations for me. Oh no, this family is from Korea, but they're living in America right now.
What? They're writing your bios like they know you?
Yeah, it's really wild.
That's too much. That's where we just have to be like, and the funny thing is, when you were telling me that, I was so enraged, but also I think because of my own upbringing, my parents were super hard on me about speaking Korean at home.
They wanted you to speak it.
but my parents, and I don't think this is a typical experience for we'll get into this another time, but like, my mom is my stepmom, and I didn't know that till I was 18, but there was all this hidden dynamic going on that I wasn't even aware of. So I would go to ESL and then come back home like hell bent. I would be doing this random thing. I would go to ESL and come back home, and I'd be like I would do random shit like that because I thought like I was practicing English. And my mom was like, "What the hell are you? Like, what the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, like I'm practicing English," or I would try to talk in English, and she'd be like, "Come here," and she dragged me by the hair and took me to the mirror and said, "저거 봐, look in the mirror. 너 눈 파랗냐? Is your eyes blue?" I'm trying to also like say it in Korean while I'm telling this in English. 너 노랑머리야? Are you blonde? No. You're black-haired Asian girl. And nobody's going to see you as anything else but that. So speak Korean. Because it would be stupid if you didn't know how to speak Korean. It was like done in such a negative way. I mean, although I'm very, very grateful because I am fluent. For someone that came at 8, in Korean, different levels of Korean. Like I can't read a Korean newspaper and I can read it, but I can't fully comprehend it because they have another level of, you know what I mean? Yep. Like it would be hard to translate a Korean newspaper because they go into very formal Korean language and also even Chinese origins.
Yes, right.
But that was what I had. And even though the outcome was very positive, like that kind of force as a child subjugated me to like a mindset that I wish I wasn't burdened with as a child, as a kid.
Yeah. What was her point of that? Was that to like hone into you that, was it because she didn't want you to lose your Korean, or was it a matter of putting you in your place? Because she just didn't like how you were speaking that, or maybe she thought that was something that you could hold over her.
Yeah. See, I think this is why it's really interesting to talk about things in a nuanced way because it's never black and white. I think, yes, there's a part of her that wanted to make sure I kept my Korean, but I think that was such a little part coming from my stepmother. I think it was more of she was living in America, struggling, not speaking English well and getting made fun of.
And you had a space where you could assimilate and learn.
And I could make mistakes and I didn't have... As a child learning, the best thing about a child learning is that you don't have as much embarrassment as an adult. And she was dealing with that constantly with people telling her, why don't you know how to speak English? You're in America now. You don't already know, you know?
It wasn't a struggle for you as it was for her. And
yes, it wasn't. Yes, exactly. It was a struggle for her. And it was also very abrasive and racist. And even though I was getting some of that, but not to the extent that an adult would, right? And I think my stepmother always felt like, know your place. That was her thing. You should know your place. You think you're better than me. And so like this inner anger came out that I think she was actually feeling towards, white people that were belittling her and being condescending to her all day long, but it projected to me as a child.
Yes, so. Which was so, I can imagine, just so hurtful and damaging. But I hope as a mom and a grown-up now, Ellen, that you understand that said so much more about her and where she was and the resentment that she was harboring, and less about her feelings towards you or lack of love towards you. It was coming from, that place of projection and maybe self-loathing a little bit and less about,
people, and self-love is so heavily talked about and promoted, but, nobody talks about self-loathing that takes a form of kind of like, I don't want to say that it was a positive, but in a way, like, it helped her survive America. Isn't that sad?
Yes,
it was like you need this anger to keep you going.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have self-love. Because nobody was giving it to you. Nobody was showing it to you.
So the anger is your fuel because...
Yeah. And I think that's... when you hold on to that for so long, it becomes you. And that's what probably killed my relationship with my stepmom is there's so many sacrifices they made. I'm so thankful. People think you can't have these mutual feelings, that they have to be exclusive of each other. But I'm very thankful. But I also know that wasn't the only way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it was a tool of her survival, but it also did so much harm.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, unfortunately, I don't talk to her anymore. And I don't hate her for that,
Mm-hmm.
but I recognize, and I'm grateful for all that she's given me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, like you said, like I recognize it can't continue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the cost of living in America that people, I feel like, don't understand. We get, like the Asian diaspora of like feeling never like you belong anywhere, right? And I get people from Asia saying you're not grateful enough. You have a great life, and there's Asians in Asia that are so jealous of the Asian American experience, but they would never say that. But you feel it.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you complaining about? You have nothing to complain about. You have a great life in America. Do you know how hard it is here in Asia? Like, I have cousins in Korea, and they work around the clock, right? And I get that. But at the same time, you have no idea how much we've lost. It's not quantifiable.
No. And when you go visit, which for me has been years, decades since I've last visited Korea, but you don't feel like
you're not well received.
No.
You're better received as a white person going to Korea than a Korean American person going to Korea.
Which is really sad.
Super sad.
Jarring when I heard that again. I think because we're planning to go to Korea in the fall and take the kids for the first time. But I've been so removed from that for such a long time that when my good friend recently went to Korea and came back, she had this little, they were so excited. And then it was a lot of disappointment when the attitude was it was not a friendly reception.
Yeah.
And toward the end of her trip, she said she was speaking English just so that she would be more
left
welcomed.
alone more. And you should. I hate to say it, but I had that experience back when I was in college. I did a program to go to Korea. I instead of choosing Rome like all my other art history students, I chose Korea because I felt like there's something about going back home that was more important and that was more significant to me, that I chose Korea. And everybody thought I was stupid. Like, where are you going back to Korea? You're from Korea. That seems stupid. And this was before the, K-pop revolution, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was going to Korea to connect to their roots.
Right.
But I chose Korea, and people literally hated me. They're like, Koreans in Korea hated me. And it's like they would like just swarm towards the white kids that couldn't even speak, be like 안녕하세요. And it's like, did you really think she said 안녕하세요? Like, what? Like, I'm here, I can speak both languages, and you would rather hang out with this white person. It'd be your own people sometimes. And so for your trip, yeah, like I will say brace yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten a lot better though than when I went, because now there is at least more Korea is getting visited so much more often now. But definitely as a Korean American, your experience will not be the one of being welcomed.
Sure.
And that's so sad, especially when you have little kids.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it because I would hate to come back and think that was not a positive experience, because
I know. I almost think it's harder for you with you being Korean American, your husband Korean American, your kids are by blood Korean. I almost feel like I was shielded in a way when I went back with my family, because I also went as when I got married and had kids. So I went with me after the whole college experience by myself as a Korean American. I went back again, me Korean, but my husband's Filipino American and my children are Korean Filipinos. They were so fascinated with my husband that it was like, ooh, what's he? Oh, tell us more. And I became just sort of like background noise. So like almost like and actually it's pretty bad. I don't know if you ever heard me talk about this, but people didn't know what Adonis was. Like, because and I get told this all the time, that right off the bat, people don't know what to. So they're like, oh, what is he? So curious. They're like, dark Japanese.
Oh my.
And I was like, no. Good looking Indian.
My God.
Yeah. And then what else did they say? They're like, okay, finally they're like, just tell us, what is he? I was like, Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said,
shock.
No, not Filipino. And I was like, oh my God, this is some racist bullshit.
Yeah.
And it was done in such a way that I didn't even process it until later, because it was like so unexpected for me.
Yeah.
Because they did it in a cartoonish way that I didn't grasp how racist that was.
Right. It's so wild to have that experience in your home country where you expect full acceptance. The same thing that you experience at home.
You think you're just coming back home, but you're not home. And that's the sad, sorrowful experience.
Well, I think you do a really good job, in your content and on your TikTok, talking about that nuance. You are just adamantly, fiercely defending people who experience racism. But there have been times where you've called out racist Asian people or Korean people, our own people.
We're not exempt from.
No, we are not. And there's so much that we've internalized from our parents, grandparents, based on their experiences too. And we're I feel like this has been such a recent thing and ongoing work to see these nuances myself and unlearn and relearn. And then, teaching your kids is a whole other thing, trying to pass to them that, instill in them a pride for who they are and where they come from and their history. And
we are doing so much better. I mean, our children will be better off for it.
Right. And our children will do even better is the hope.
But I don't want you to get scared. You should be excited.
I am excited. I am excited. But it is. But there's so much to a Korea trip. There's family to visit, relatives that we haven't seen. So there's things to do. Because I have another friend who texted me this week and said she's taking her family to Korea, but they're not Korean. They're white.
I can't wait for you.
We will have vastly different trips, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I have things to do, obligations. Yeah. And then they can just make the most of what will probably be their only trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to unpack when you come back from this
trip.
There
will probably
have a lot
so
to talk
much
about.
To unpack.
It'll be great stuff.
You can email us with questions, comments, feedback at reply@replyYC.com.
응답하라
Yeochin! Ko to the N to the 실.
박 to the 경 to the 주.